Let's do a show, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inside Coverage here on Yahoo. The how and the why, everything that goes on in the National Football League. We're here Monday through Thursday every day. We're happy that you're here. My name is Andrew Siciliano. I am the host. I promise you I am humble. Don't listen to what other people say. And this is kind of sort of the halfway point of the season. I mean, the 17-game thing messes everything up. We've been in this mode now for a while. It used to be so much easier when it was 16 games. You could divide by 4. You could do the quarter report, the halfway report, everything. It was nice and clean and easy, and we had this whole baseline. Now it's 17 games, and it's a pain. So here's what we've decided to do. Instead of a deep dive, a play-by-play recap of what you knew was going to happen. The Chiefs would eventually pull away from the Commanders and they would win. Forget about that. It happened. The Chiefs are good. We are going to do our mid-season awards today, even though technically it's not mid-season until midway through the games on Sunday, or maybe that would be Thursday. I don't know. Jori Epstein, Frank Schwab, my good friends, are here for this show. Jori, is this halfway through the season? Are we cheating? Does this feel right to you?
I know, as you were saying this, Andrew, I was thinking, do we need to pull up around 3 p.m. Eastern on Sunday, just do an emergency show? We have reached the halfway. Announcements on all of the billboard, the jumbotrons across the stadium. So we're slightly premature, but better early than late. I've run late way too many times in my life. So I think that this is good that we can do a little makeup for that and get here early. It's like when I wished a friend happy birthday a few days early recently. She's like, it's not my birthday till Thursday, right? And I'm like, well, think of all the times I've been late. Now we're just evening out on average. Right. So one year we do this, the other year we do the other. We're all good. Frank, will you be willing to indulge us in some midseason awards?
Maybe. You guys know I don't need to get to mid-season to talk about awards. I'm talking about MVP after week 1. I love it. I love talking awards. I love talking superlatives. I don't care if it's mid-season, week 2, week 14, at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon when we hit the halfway point. I'm ready. I love it. Let's go.
Okay. I'm with you. And sometimes when I, wish someone a happy birthday, Jori, and they not clap back, but answer back, hey, it's not my birthday for 3 more days. I answer back, it's the thought that counts, A, number one. And B, it also means I probably screwed it up in my calendar, right? And it's all my fault. But you don't want to say that. What you say is, hey, I have so much love for you that I wanted to tell you early. It's all from here, right? And also I should probably make a note to fix it because this is the 3rd straight year that I've wished you happy birthday on the wrong day. But you have to build it into... It's just from the heart, and it's something of love. All right, so later in the show, we're going to do some midway point awards that are actually like second half predictions. That's the fun stuff. We're going to blow through some of these awards pretty quickly because a lot of them we agree on. Some of them, though, we're totally different. Those are the ones we're going to dive a little bit deeper into. I don't know, Madison, do we have a drum roll? We don't have music. And by the way, can we call out Madison Sanders she is our mid-season award winner. And there's no production for this because I just decided to do this now. Mid-season award winner for steering this ship every single day. And lots of times when I listen back to the pod, like when, later in the night, and she adds all these sound effects and like cool, fun stuff. And obviously there's a whole team. Madison is just, the one getting the credit and the applause here. So thank you, Madison. Okay, cool.
Okay, let's do this. Celebration of that, I'll just note that there was an episode recently when I said something about you guys were like, oh yeah, the technical difficulties. And I'm like, what do you mean? I listened to the whole episode and I heard none of it on Spotify. And Madison, gotta love it.
Yeah. You and I were texting. You're like, hey, this. And I'm like, yeah, we had there's this issue with the audio. And you're like, I didn't even notice. It wasn't there. And I'm like, well done. Okay. Mid-season awards. We're going to go right to the MVP. And I'm going to go to Frank first because he is, as he said, from day one, talking about the MVP. We're week 3 of the preseason. He's like, I don't know, guys. I'm really looking at Brock Purdy for MVP. So
Jackson Dart
here we are
at that point. Yeah.
Yep. After 8 weeks, Frank Schwab, your MVP is who?
I probably should say Patrick Mahomes. He's been awesome. He's playing some of the best ball of his career. But I am a champion of the non-quarterback MVP candidates. And so I have to go with the guy, not because I'm biased towards my alma mater, but Jonathan Taylor has meant more to the best record, the team with the best record in football, than anybody else has meant to their team, I think. Jonathan Taylor is on paces for an unbelievable season, one of the greatest running back seasons we've ever seen. It's him, not Daniel Jones, carrying that team. Unfortunately, at BetMGM, Daniel Jones has better odds to win MVP than Jonathan Taylor, which tells you we've kind of lost our way with MVP. But look, we talked about it yesterday, Andrew. A non-quarterback hasn't won MVP since 2012. Before that, it was 2006. Rarely happens. Didn't happen to J.J. Watt or Cooper Kupp or Saquon Barkley. But I'm here to tell you, I think Jonathan Taylor right now should be the MVP. I'm fine with it being Patrick Mahomes, but JT is my pick here. He's just done so much. He's taken so much pressure off of Daniel Jones. His running ability has closed out so many games for them. He's the reason. He is the engine of that 7-1 team. He is your midseason MVP.
As we discussed yesterday, he is leading the league in scoring. Non-kickers don't lead the league in scoring anymore, as the old NFL Films voice would say, in modern professional football. That doesn't happen. It simply does not happen. But that's what Jonathan Taylor is doing right now. Jori, I'm looking at the notes. You agree?
I do agree. And I was back and forth between Jonathan Taylor and Patrick Mahomes, and maybe that leads people to a spoiler alert about who my offensive player of the year candidate will be, although I think Frank and I actually picked different ones. So we will find out about that. But I do think that when you look at it, to lead the league, not only with 12 rushing touchdowns, 850 rushing yards, but also with 14 touchdowns from scrimmage, 1,056 yards from scrimmage, and as you said, the 86 total points scored, right above Brandon Aubrey at 74 points. And then you go down the line with the kickers. I do think that this is someone, when I think of MVP, I think of someone who has to elevate their team above what the team's expectation is and above what the rest of the personnel should be able to do, and also is able to help their team to win. So I know we'll talk about that with some of our candidates for other awards too. But when I think back to it, and I think you guys know, Charles Robinson and I are on the official panel, or whatever you want to call it, for the MVP awards at the end of the year. And last year I voted for Lamar Jackson, first team All-Pro, but Josh Allen as the MVP. I split that vote because I felt like Josh Allen had to carry the team more than Lamar Jackson did with Derrick Henry. When I look at what Jonathan Taylor has compared to Patrick Mahomes, who, yes, he had some offensive weapons that weren't there at the beginning of the season, but he had one of the best defenses in the league. He had Andy Reid. All credit to him, but I think that Jonathan Taylor has had to do more relative to the pieces around him.
Okay, I think he's a great answer, and he's going to be one of my answers later on in this show as we keep on handing out the flowers. I'm going to go with a guy that a couple of weeks ago I poo-pooed this possibility, but I'm going to go with Drake May. And I saw him in person this last week. This was coming off the 21-23 performance the week before. All he did in the second half against the Browns was throw this many incompletions. 0. He didn't throw a single incompletion in the second half. This is a game in which the Browns sacked him 6 times. Myles Garrett had 5 of them. Myles also forced a fumble. The Browns did pick him off as well. Carson Schlesinger did that in the first quarter, maybe the second quarter, the first half. I remember that. And he kept going, and he didn't throw an incompletion. And Josh McDaniels deserves a huge part of the compliments here, because what he is doing, he is calling a masterful game, seemingly week in, week out, especially in the second half when he had that Jim Schwartz defense running side to side, and he put him in a blender. But Drake May has this ability to break the pocket and run, not always for 20, 30, 40 yards, but for 5 yards, for 6 yards. He moves the chains. He always keeps them in a positive down and distance. And he is special. He truly is special. And he is faster than you think he is. Much faster. He goes 1, 2, 3, not there. I'm out of the pocket. I'm getting 5 yards. We're going back to the line of scrimmage, and we're doing this again. I'm not necessarily passer rating and consecutive games with how many every yards. I think some of that stuff is nonsense. I think the stat machine that is the NFL always it's changing the guidelines. It's like, hey, so he's the youngest to do this, under 25 years old, and this is 185 yards and a rating above 90 and no picks. And you're like, guys, we're just making this stuff up now. But I'll give you one. Most consecutive games with 200 or more yards passing and a 100 passer rating. So Drake May's now done it 7 consecutive games. The players who have done it for longer, we had Manning with a streak, Peyton with a streak for 8, Brady with a streak for 8, Rodgers with a streak for 8, and Rodgers with a streak for 12. They all won the MVP.
Good company.
They all won the MVP. So I think Drake May, if they can keep winning, I think Drake May, guys, could very well be the MVP.
I do want to see him against different competition, maybe a little bit stiffer competition than what he's seen. And look, kudos to what they did against the Bills. And I think that is going to be one of the feathers in the caps. But when you think about even the way that like college football playoffs works and different things, strength of schedule matters in terms of, to me, the value you are providing the same way that the cast around you matters. And so that's what I would want to see. But absolutely, he's having a great season. It's just whether it's the most valuable to me or kind of top 5 valuable.
Yeah, and when it comes to DVOA,
it's hard to get May over. It's hard to get May over Mahomes. That's all. But Drake May's been awesome. There's no question about that.
I was going to go back to DVOA, which is our favorite thing, right? Aaron Schatz is obviously a revolutionary analytic tool. But in terms of DVOA, the easiest schedule in the last 50 years, 5-0. Any team. Wow.
Easiest remaining
New England Patriots. Yeah. Well, it was all encompassing. And part of that, this was last week before they played the Browns, when you had to take into account the Browns had 2 wins. They still had 2 games against the Jets, who at that point had no wins, and 2 games against the Dolphins, whom at that point had 1 win. So those 5 games accounted for, on paper at that point last week, 4 total wins. So I'm sure that is skewed. But going into last week, the Patriots had one of the easiest schedules in the last 50 years, 5-0 years. So I'm going Drake May. All right, Offensive Player of the Year. Jori, who do you have?
I have Patrick Mahomes. I think that Patrick Mahomes, first of all, is playing excellently and really has done a lot for this team, both when he's got his weapons back and before he had his weapons back. Like, even when they weren't winning, I didn't think Patrick Mahomes was the problem. I just thought it was how much can he carry the guys around him? And he was, but not all the way. And so that for me was why, okay, Jonathan Taylor gets the edge over him, but Patrick Mahomes deserves to be recognized for the season he's having. And I think when I go back to what was going on with these awards when Tom Brady and Bill Belichick were still playing, I don't think that past performance and past success should keep you from these awards or make you ineligible. And I do think that Patrick Mahomes deserves that for the performances he's had this year.
Frank, what do you got?
I really hate to be the semantics guy here, but how can I pick an MVP who's an offensive player and not pick that player as offensive player of the year? That seems kind of weird to me. So my pick is Jonathan Taylor, and I think that's the award he's going to win if this all plays out as it plays out. He's not going to win MVP. We all know that because non-quarterbacks don't win anymore. But he is the offensive player of the year. If I had to do the whole consolation prize thing, like it usually has become over the years, it may be Mahomes, or I'm still not down on Puka Nacua for this, because just because he got hurt doesn't mean that those stats are erased. He was on an unbelievably prolific tear, and the Rams are a really, really good team. So I like to give Puka Nacua a shout out here. But yes, since I picked an offensive player as my MVP, I will also pick the same guy as my offensive player of the year.
Okay, so yesterday on the show, Jori, I don't know if you had a chance to listen. Also, you probably have a life, so if you didn't, that's fine. But yesterday on the show, I was pounding the table for Jonathan Taylor as MVP. And Frank, I want you to know that I listen to you. Like, you do have influence here. Like, I respect you. Of course I do.
That's scary.
But I was pounding the table for Jonathan Taylor pretty passionately. But you convinced me, hey, a running back, it ain't gonna happen, man.
It ain't gonna happen.
Quarterback. It ain't gonna happen, man. Although that's not an impression of you. You don't sound like that. And so now when I was going through, I promise you don't. I'm going through here and I'm like, you're right, it's not going to happen. So that's why I picked Drake May. So now I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor because he's putting. I mean, I hate the on pace because rarely does the on pace ever stick. Too many things happen.
That's why I love it.
Like, I'm surprised.
So fun.
It is
first
fun.
quarter,
It's fun
team
in
goes
baseball.
off, and you're like, this team is on pace for 87 points this game.
Right.
I love that stuff.
Yeah. It's like when the Dolphins scored 70 points in that one game against the Broncos,
Denver,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so you could say like the Dolphins are on pace for like 1,300 points scored in a season. That's quick math. It's more like 1,200, but you get my point.
It's true.
They were.
Numbers don't lie. They never lie.
Except they didn't get there, right? Cal Raleigh was on pace for 65 home runs, and then all of a sudden he hit 65 or whatever he hit. That was pretty impressive. Jonathan Taylor is on pace for something that is just ridiculous. And going back to the thing about kickers and scoring, Jori, you pointed out that he's 12 more. Taylor is right now ahead of Brandon Aubrey. Last year, 18 of the top 20 scorers were kickers. The highest non-kicker was Jahmyr Gibbs. He was 14, and then James Cook was 20. We haven't had a non-kicker, and I made this point yesterday, lead the league in scoring since LaDainian Tomlinson scored 31 touchdowns in 2006. So if Taylor is even in the top 5, give him the award. And then you need to consider him for MVP as well. But Offensive Player of the Year, I think right now, I mean, he is a clear front runner. And
massive favorite
in
the books.
Yep. Yeah, he is just cruising. All right, let's get to Defensive Player of the Year. Jori, what do you have?
I have Myles Garrett, but I think this is a really interesting one because when I think about the criteria for this, I think about a game wrecker, someone who's helping his team to wins, and someone who's elevating those around him. And one of those, Myles Garrett, of course, falls short on in terms of the number of wins the Browns have been able to get with him. And so on one hand, from a pure production standpoint, it doesn't really matter who he's going against, even against the Patriots this week, who are a strong team, as we discussed, winning record. He's got 5 sacks there. Myles has 10 sacks, according to Pro Football Focus. He's got 22 run stops. He's forced a fumble, top 3 in edge run stopping, according to ESPN. And the Browns pass rush win rate and the run block win rate are at the top, according to ESPN. So when you look across the metrics, Myles Garrett has earned it. What I think is fascinating is that in looking at this, I went back and said, when was the last time we had a Defensive Player of the Year from a team that didn't make the playoffs or didn't have a winning record? And the last time a Defensive Player of the Year was not in the playoffs was 2014. JJ Watt. The Texans had a 9-7 record, so they did win, but they didn't make the playoffs. And the last time a Defensive Player of the Year came from a team with a losing record was 2006, Jason Taylor. So I think that even though it seems like Myles Garrett is among the favorites right now, I do think that there comes a point where I will factor in before the end of the year what a team is doing, not just a player. And I think that could hurt Myles Garrett. But through half of the season, I think his performance earns him the midseason Defensive Player of the Year award.
All right, you go first, Frank, because my choice, or you go second. My choice is Myles as well. I want to put a button on it afterwards. But who do you got? Yeah.
By the way,
wait, are you accusing me of bias?
Oh no, never, Andrew. I wouldn't do that.
Okay. By the way, you're going to pick a guy in your backyard.
in 2006,
at least
Champ
I'm
Bailey
unbiased then, because I didn't either.
That's true. I just want to say 2006, Champ Bailey was one of the all-time robberies. Champ Bailey had the best season a cornerback could ever have and didn't win Defensive Player of the Year because it's Jickles and sacks. Like it was so bad. Anyway, yes, I'm going with a guy who plays down the street from me here, as I sit in Castle Rock, Colorado. I'm going to Nick Bonito. Look, Myles Garrett probably should be the answer, but yes, I'm being a little contrarian here. And part of it is that Bonito's on a team that is positioned well to make the playoffs. He has made a big impact. Myles Garrett's 5-sack game vaulted him ahead of Bonito for the sack lead and all that kind of stuff. But Bonito still has the top PRP, pass rush pressure grade on PFF right now. He has had an impact in just about every game this season. He's been unbelievable. And he's one of those guys who's not a household name. So Micah Parsons getting a lot of pub now. Myles Garrett's always going to get pub. If TJ Watt was having a better season, he'd get pub. Nick Bonito's not a household name to everybody, so I don't think he gets those easy votes. He's not an easy guy to just say, oh yeah, Nick Bonito, I know him. Of course, I'll vote for him. I want to shout out Nick Bonito because I think he's been unbelievable this year for a really, really good defense on a very good team.
Yeah, he's a special player, and the Broncos were right to lock him up. He wasn't a first-round pick; he was a second-round pick. If he had waited one more year, he got paid. He got paid well, like $20 million, 21, 22 off the top of my head on the back end of that deal. If he had waited one more year, that number would have gone up 50% in all likelihood because he was doing it back-to-back years. My pick is going to be Myles. Last year, he led the NFL with 22 TFLs. He already has 15 TFLs. He has 10 sacks after that 5-sack effort. He also had a forced fumble. The Browns lost the game. clearly, and all the think pieces will undoubtedly be written this week. It's the Browns bye week about Miles and the contract and settling for losing. And listen, I get it. You would have taken the contract too, by the way. So if you're writing this article saying, oh, you took the contract, yeah, you would have too, buddy. Whomever is writing it, he took the deal and he wants to be part of the future there. Don't know what that future looks like this week, next week, but obviously his performance was wasted. You could look at advanced metrics and make, I think, a pretty compelling argument that his 2024 season last year, in which Patrick Surtain won in your backyard, was better than his 2023 season, which he did win the award. You could argue that he is still, in a weird way, an ascending player, and he turns 30 around Christmas. He just broke the record Reggie White set, random parameters here, for most sacks before the age of 30. He did that this past Sunday with his 5 sacks. And for those who say, wait a minute, you can't give it to a guy whose team is losing. Look, they got blown out and he had 5 sacks. I get it. Let me remind you, though, that in 1990, when Derek Thomas set the single game sack record with 7, he had 7 against the Seahawks. That was an AFC West battle. So long ago, the Seahawks were in the AFC West. The Chiefs lost that game.
Yeah, Paul Stanzi at the buzzer. Yep.
Yeah. So the Browns lost this game as well. Now, in 1990, I just looked it up. I think it was Bruce Smith. That was me leaning into my computer earlier. Live Googling here. It was Bruce Smith who won DPOY, not Derek Thomas, in 1990. Whatever. They're all in the Hall of Fame. If Miles wins it this week or this year, I don't know that anyone's going to be upset. All right. Coach of the year. We're going to do this here at the bottom of the A block TV term. Jori, Coach of the year is who?
Shane Steichen. I think Mike Vrabel, if the schedule were a little different and the roster is a little different, he should be up there. He should be in consideration. We'll see how they figure it out. But when you tell me what each of those teams have, I do think that a coach looking for a job last year would rather have come to the Drake May team than the Daniel Jones team or Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson team. I think you also have to give him credit as the coach for making that decision, not only to get Daniel, but also to start him over Anthony. And then the way that they have just really elevated their play on both sides of the ball. And so I think that when you look at it, I mean, last year they were 17th in scoring on offense, 13 yardage, 24, 29th, and now they're the top offense in both points and yards, 6th in points allowed, 24th in yardage. I mean, they have improved on both sides of the ball in all the metrics. And the last thing I'll say is that, to me, the coach of the year needs to not only have elevated the personnel above what's expected, but also specifically been involved with the part of the team that we are giving him the award on the basis of. And while I'm not saying the Patriots defense isn't playing well, the Patriots offense is where they took the biggest jump, and Mike Vrabel is not the offensive coach. And so because Shane Steichen is calling plays, designing the scheme, and working closely with that offense, that is why, to me, he gets the bump over Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, and I like Vrabel as well. I think he could easily get this award, prepping for them last week. And, this number is always a little bit fluid here because the churning of the bottom of the roster. They had 28 players on their roster heading into last week of the 53, not including practice squad, that were quote-unquote new players. So it is very much a roster turnover. And can anyone name their 2024 draft class other than Drake May?
I don't want to name it.
You got
Caden Wallace, I believe.
Baker.
Right. So here's the thing. There's only 2 guys left other than Drake May. The Penn State third-round lineman, Caden Wallace, I believe, who's always inactive, and a 6th-round corner who blew his knee out and is on IR, blew his knee out in training camp. That's it. Drake May's the whole class. That's it. So Mike Vrabel deserves votes. I am going to, like Jori, however, cast my vote for Shane Steichen pretty much for everything you just said there. Chris Ballard's taken a lot of heat over the years. He drafts on traits, height, weight, speeds, all that stuff, a lot of raw players. And you're like, Chris, what are you doing here? None of these guys actually amount to much. And then all of a sudden you drop the quarterback into it. Amazing how that works now when Shane Steichen has that quarterback to go with all that talent. He is a masterful play caller. He would get my vote. Frank, who you got?
A quick rant, because I think Coach of the Year has been a broken award for many, many years. It rarely goes to the best coach. I always like to use this stat that ACC Men's Basketball Coach of the Year, in Mike Krzyzewski's final 22 seasons, he never won that award. You're telling me that Mike Krzyzewski was never the best coach in the ACC?
Jim Boeheim was the best coach every year.
Every year, of course. He was never the best coach in the ACC over 22 years. Sure, fine, whatever. What we do is we say this team exceeded expectations the most. And instead of just admitting, hey, I was wrong about the Indianapolis Colts, they're better than I thought, we say, well, I couldn't have been wrong. It had to be that Shane Steichen turned into 1972 Don Shula. We do this all the time. I have nothing against Steichen. He's a perfectly reasonable pick, but I'm going to go just in a different direction. Because what do we talk about all offseason? The Lions are screwed. They've lost both coordinators. They were the brain trust. Ben Johnson leaves. Aaron Glenn leaves. This team's going to fall apart. And what do we see? We see the same Lions. We see them being aggressive with trick plays and on fourth down. We see a next man up mentality on defense that we saw under Aaron Glenn, now with Kelvin Shepherd. And we're like, wow, Kelvin Shepherd's doing a great job. And wow, John Morton's doing a great job calling these plays. The common thread here is Dan Campbell. And just because they went 15-2 last year doesn't mean that he can't be the best coach in the NFL. I think Dan Campbell has set a culture there that is going to go on for years and years. We're seeing it now that even if you lose your coordinators, Dan Campbell's the common thread. He got those coordinators ready to buy into what the Lions are doing. They're one of the best teams in football, second right now in Super Bowl odds. So I just want to say Dan Campbell, because I don't subscribe to this theory that it's got to be a coach of a team who exceeded expectations. I don't care that they were 15-2 last year. We talked all offseason about how the coordinators were such a big deal. It wasn't a big deal because they still have Dan Campbell, who's a heck of a coach, and I think deserves votes for Coach of the Year.
I will say, I think Dan Campbell's a good pick, and I do think that he has a strong case. I also think that this is not about exceeding expectations. This is about, look at the roster Dan Campbell has. I feel like we talk all the time about how it's one of the best rosters in the league. So that's where I feel like the nuance comes in. Not what did we think of them, but what did he have to work with, what raw material.
And there's always a conversation about what exactly are expectations, right? And then you throw in the advanced metrics. Well, a completion percentage over expectations. Expected by whom? Right? Like by whom? For who? For what? Like, why do I think the computer expected the right amount of yardage? Anyway, I digress. Here's what is expected and always guaranteed, that we're going to go way too long in the opening block of the show. And we nailed it. Way too long. Coming up next, the kids are all right. Our rookies, plural, of the year, plus our biggest disappointment of 2025. Coming up next on Inside Coverage. It's Inside Coverage here on Yahoo. It's about complimentary football. In other words, we give out compliments. So here on our Midseason award show, we're handing out compliments along with Jori and Frank. Hi, I'm Andrew. Let's do the offensive rookie of the year. And it's sad that one of these selections here can't, in all likelihood, actually win it. Jori, that's your selection, because unfortunately, he was eating cheesesteaks in a hospital on Sunday night. But I get why you picked him as your offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I picked Giants running back Cam Scadaboo, who has taken the league by storm, both on the field and off the field. And when we talked about these awards, I clarified when we were asked to do these. And I said, is this about the award winner for the first half of the season or our projection for the full season? And this was the first half of the season. And through the first half of the season, no rookie offensive player has played better, in my opinion, than Cam Scadaboo. Look what he did for his quarterback, even when his quarterback in Jackson Dart did not have Malik Neighbors on the field. Look what he did in terms of just his ability to hit the ground running. This is not a first-round pick who's doing this. He totally exceeded expectations. There I go with the expectations again. And he was leading all rookies with 617 yards and 7 touchdowns. I mean, he only started 5 of those 8 games. And so I think when you look at it, he will not likely end up winning unless every rookie just completely goes crazy in a bad way and bails out the rest of the season. But to the halfway point of the season, Scadaboo has been the best offensive rookie.
And tip of the cap to Big Dom D'Alessandro, obviously there for the Eagles, who allegedly or reportedly, when Cam was in the hospital there because the injury happened, was it in Philly? No, yeah, in Philly. That Big Dom took him cheesesteaks and pizza. Brought him.
Can you do both? I was like,
the hospital.
What is Cam Scadaboo's appetite?
Very
like
nice of him.
Pounding cheesesteaks and pizza.
Yeah, it's
my goodness.
Just a lot of dairy. It's a lot of dairy.
He's a different kind of guy.
Man, it's a lot of dairy. Dom. Anyway, rookie of the year, Frank. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with another Giant, but it's Jackson Dart. I mean, the juice that he's given that franchise is undeniable. He just makes plays every week. Not holding it against Jackson Dart that they made the mistake not to start him week 1. They should have. They wasted a few weeks with Russell Wilson. Fine, whatever. Jackson Dart got the job. We all saw what we saw in the preseason, which was, oh my goodness, this guy can play. I think the Giants got their quarterback for a long, long time. Hope he stays healthy because he has been just an injection of energy into the Giants franchise. I know the wins haven't come yet, but he's playing really, really well, and he's my rookie of the year. I'll be honest, I didn't even think twice about this. I think Dart has been that good that he deserves. He deserves a halfway point rookie of the year, and I think he's going to run away with the full season rookie of the year.
I think he's been special, and part of me wants to go back to what you did with the quarterbacks for MVP, saying, oh, it's got to be a quarterback. And if that's the case, I do think it's Jackson Dart. There's no wrong answer here, I think. I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka, however, the Buccaneers wide receiver, who is so when you talk to defensive coordinators, you guys know this. You talk to a DC during the week, and when they're game planning, it's, well, hey, who do you have to worry about? When you talk to your team and you lay out the game plan on Wednesday, and you're, guys, all right, this guy, this is the guy we circle right here. This is the guy that we got to worry about. Rarely is that a rookie. And in this case, for the Buccaneers, the guy you have to worry about, especially with Mike Evans out, is Emeka Egbuka. He is a polished pro. He was pro ready, just like take him out of the package, drop him in, and he is that good. I remember doing an Ohio State game last year, and I was talking to Chip Kelly before the game. We were talking about Jeremiah Smith, undoubtedly, and he was a freshman, and that day we did the Michigan State game. It was amazing. Had that one-handed catch down the sideline. That was kind of, I don't want to say a national coming out party, but that game, he got a lot of eyeballs. Ryan Williams that night as well, Alabama, Georgia, on another network, also a freshman, got a lot of eyeballs. But he specifically, Chip told me about how Emeka Egbuka was working with Jeremiah Smith and how invaluable it was to have a pro wide receiver. And that's what Chip called it, a pro wide receiver working with Jeremiah Smith. And then you see the way that Emeka just goes like that into the NFL. And he's a veteran, but he's a rookie. He is my pick. Defensive Rookie of the Year. Guys, this is going to be the shortest segment ever because we all have the same answer. It's Carson Schlesinger, the Browns linebacker who wears number 49, but he was number 33 overall. He was the first pick in the second round. And before he suffered an ankle injury, which could keep him out a couple of weeks, and that was in New England this past week, the Browns lost to the Patriots, he was leading all NFL rookies in tackles, which is pretty much all you've got to know. When I interviewed Carson Schlesinger the day after the draft, he had worn 49 at UCLA. And I said to him, Jori, I said, hey, 49? Like, are you going to stick with 49? Man, I can't. And I looked out to the room, like the production crew. I'm like, does anyone remember like a 49, like a linebacker that's worn 49? And you know what he said? He said, well, no one good has ever worn it. I guess I got to be the one. So
I love that.
Confident kid, and he's playing his tail off.
Absolutely. And this is a guy who has 64 tackles and also 4 tackles for last 3 quarterback hits and a sack. The only reason I would argue against this, and I did pick him, would be if you say, well, yeah, it's easier to play linebacker when you got Myles Garrett and go on your defensive front. And I do think that that is something that people could say if someone else starts to threaten him. But I think at this point, he's still playing fantastically, and we don't have to fault him for that relative to the rest of the competition, which no rookie has more than 2 sacks going in. There wasn't like some crazy guy on the back. And I mean, even with Defensive Player of the Year, when I'm like, oh, are there any DBs I'm missing out on? There really isn't. So I do think that as of now, he's got a comfortable lead.
Yeah, you kind of alluded to it, Jori. It's almost a little bit by default. That's nothing against Carson Schlesinger. He's been awesome. We talked about him preseason even. But Abdul Carter's sitting there with a half a sack. The last time I checked, I don't think he got another one Sunday. But he is still, if you look at the betting odds, Abdul Carter is still a favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, which blows my mind because I think if Schlesinger heals from this, I think it's a high ankle sprain, Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If he heals from that quickly enough, comes back, doesn't miss too many games and keeps up the production he's had, I think Schlesinger wins, and he deserves it. He's been a fantastic, just a home run pick for the Browns in the second round.
Yeah, I don't know that you get a green dot bounce if that's a thing. I do think it's notable, though. He's wearing the green dot, and he's worn it from day one, week one. After Jordan Hicks retired during training camp, they gave it to him. people went, wait a minute, you're going to give the green dot to a rookie, meaning the quarterback of the defense gets the call in from the helmet from the DC, sets the defense, moves everyone around. And they're like, nah, he'll be fine. And you talk to his teammates, he is a leader already, like a very real leader. All right, this is the fun one here. Now we're getting fun. Biggest surprise of the season. Jori, who you got?
So my surprise wasn't a surprise relative to what I would have thought 6 months or a year ago. It was from training camp until now, who is my biggest surprise. And when I was at the Los Angeles Rams training camp, Matthew Stafford was not practicing. He was dealing with a back injury. The man is 37 years old. And I started to wonder, I wasn't doubting whether Matthew Stafford at his peak and at a healthy Matthew Stafford could be productive, but I was wondering if his health would keep him from playing or at the very least slow him. I mean, when you're talking about the back and you're talking about everything he's going through, like that matters for a quarterback. And here we are, we sit here, the Rams are 5-2, 17 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, 1866 yards. I mean, he has been doing this. It didn't matter when Puka wasn't in the game a few weeks ago and they were traveling overseas to face the Jaguars. And it was they traveled the day of, and he's 37 years old, changing like 9 time zones without his top receiver, and he's still just going off. And so I think when you look at that, that is really impressive to me, that 5 touchdown day and what he has done against the better teams as well. So Matthew Stafford's ability to stay healthy and play at this level at 37, my biggest surprise through half the season.
Real quick, it's a great pick. Sean McVay during the bye was on with our friend Rich Eisen last week. And remember, they played the Jaguars, Liam Cohen, a lot of former Rams on that Jacksonville staff. And Sean said that when Stafford was talking to some of the Jacksonville people, they said, hey, man, like that was great what Sean did, faking that back injury so you could take all the training camp off. Like that was awesome. And he's like, I'm not faking it. I'm not faking it. That was real. And he's playing his tail off. Who you got, Frank?
I really like Jori's pick. I can't lie. I'm jealous I didn't think of it first because, I mean, Matthew Stafford, if you would have said him for MVP, I'd have said, okay, I see it. He's played that well. I just went obvious here and went with Daniel Jones because, I mean, remember in August when they said, okay, Daniel Jones is our guy. We're putting him ahead of Anthony Richardson. It was kind of this, all right, you've just admitted defeat on Anthony Richardson, but we get it. Like, you got to try to win some games to save your job. But Daniel Jones isn't going to do that because he's Danny Dimes. And he's been awesome. Like, he's been just great this season. And then seemingly the next reclamation project at quarterback, along with Darnold and Mayfield and Geno and all those guys. I found the right spot for him. He's done nothing but ball out this year. Danny, huge surprise. I didn't see this coming. I didn't see Sam Darnold coming last year. I didn't see Baker Mayfield coming 2 years before that. Maybe I should be a little more open-minded to these quarterbacks in new, better environments. Daniel Jones, my biggest surprise of the first half.
I think it's the right answer, and it's the one that I wanted to take. I decided to go a little bit outside the box. Not that this pick is like that outside the box. I'm going to go with Sam Darnold, who should be the obvious pick. I take it back. It shouldn't be the pick for biggest surprise because he did this last year. Mm-hmm. But I am one of the people who watched Week 18 and then watched what the Rams did to him in the wild card round with that neutral site game in Arizona where they blitzed the pants off him and went, I don't know. You really want to guarantee $100 million? It's not a $100 million guarantee, but you really want to sign that deal? It's one thing to move on from Geno. I supported that, but really Sam is the guy you're going to write a big check to. I was wrong. Sam Darnold is playing better than he was last year. Just turn the tape on and watch some of the throws. Better than he was last year. I knew he'd still be good. I didn't think he would take it to this level. Sam Darnold is my biggest surprise. Biggest disappointment. And we don't mean to be negative, but sometimes people let me down. Let us all down. Jori, your biggest disappointment this year?
It's possible I've got recency bias on this one after coming from the Packers at Steelers game in Pittsburgh. But I think right now, the biggest disappointment I've seen is Aaron Rodgers' supporting cast, both on offense and that defense. I think that if you're Aaron Rodgers, you're going back and saying, I want to play for a team that can help me make it further in the playoffs. I mean, we already know he wasn't taking the money he could have commanded. He also has far he has so many other things he could be doing right now. And I'm not saying this as like Aaron Rodgers is the victim, but he's not a guy who football is the only thing he's done in his life. And he said, no, I want to come back and play one more time because I want to win. I want to wash away what happened with the Jets. And when I'm at that game on Sunday night, I mean, you got on back-to-back plays, it's like, well, they're dropping the pass here and they're fumbling the ball there. And oh, by the way, his protection's not holding up for a sack on first down. And this defense has been far below everyone's expectations. I think that even like the last 5 games last year, the Steelers defense started to fall off. And I remember Mike Tomlin even told one of the reporters who asked about it during that stretch that it was a bit of dramatic to call it a spiral. The spiral hasn't stopped yet. I mean, kudos to Joe Flacco if he could figure this out. But I also think what Joe Flacco did a couple weeks ago might be more reflective of the Steelers defense than it was of Joe Flacco. And so I think that Aaron Rodgers is actually playing well, getting the ball to the target, playing smart. He's got the mobility back. He's got the arm strength, and he'll make a few plays a game that are just insane. And then quite a few plays where, oh, DK didn't get that one in the end zone, or, oh, this guy didn't do their job. And to his credit, he has not gone off on them. Really, from what we're seeing from the outside, he is much more mellow than I think he was at times during his Jets tenure and certainly during his Packers tenure. But I do not think Aaron Rodgers is the problem in Pittsburgh right now. And it would be fun for the football world to get to see him have one more great season to ride off with.
I did enjoy him yelling at Jalen Warren during the TNF loss to the Bengals. He was pretty fired up there. If you read lips, that was a doozy on Prime Video. Frank, your disappointment is who?
I'm going to go obvious again. And, I'll make this personal because I picked the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl this year. Not that I was on an island there, but they have been, they're a 2-5 football team. They got to go 7-3 the rest of the way to get the 500 for the season. How can that not be a massive disappointment? Injuries have played a huge role in that. But to be honest, they weren't playing well before the injuries really hit. The defense has been bad. For a team that was so good at the end of last season and has an all-time great quarterback, for them to start 1-5, massive, massive disappointment so far. Now, I think they can right the ship. I think they're going to win that division, as we talked about yesterday. But they got to do it. It's at this point, they're just a 2-5 football team. And yes, big, big disappointment that the Ravens are sitting here having to not win out, but get on a huge roll just to make the playoffs. Nobody saw that coming, especially me, again, who picked them to win the Super Bowl.
The entire AFC North is disappointing. I mean, let's just cut the baloney.
Almost pick that.
Top to bottom, the entire AFC North is disappointing. That isn't my choice. I'm going to go specifically, not macro, but micro here. The Bengals defense is the most disappointing thing in the NFL this year. Remember, last year, Lou Anarumo, actually good number of years, Lou Anarumo, who has seemingly found his mojo again. Funny how that works in Indianapolis. This year, Al Golden. So I'm going to just compare stats here real quick. This is going to be a short one. So last year, Lou Anarumo, total defense, Bengals were 25th. This year, Al Golden, total defense, last 32. Last year, Lou Anarumo, passing defense, 21. This year, Al Golden, passing defense, 31. They've allowed only 20 fewer yards through the air than the Cowboys, who are the worst passing defense in the NFL. Rushing defense, last year, 19. Kind of middle of the pack. This year, 32. Last year, under Lou Anarumo, scoring defense, 24. This year, with Al Golden, scoring defense, last in the NFL, 31.6. So just, again, to summarize, total defense, 32. Passing defense, 31. Rushing defense, 32. Scoring defense, 32. And as you can see with the tweet on the screen, all these other metrics, anywhere between 29 and 32. They are the worst, and it's not even close. Imagine what they would be with a real defense. Look, I know that not having Joe Burrow there and having Jake Browning turning the ball over in that brief window might skew the numbers just a bit. I get it. But the Bengals sought to fix a problem in the offseason. New coordinator, drafted some young pieces, brought back Trey Hendrickson. They have gotten worse defensively. They are the biggest disappointment. Coming up next, we look ahead to the second half of the season. We're going to circle a couple of games that you cannot miss, and we're going to give you some shocking headlines. We're going to look into the future. And I guarantee you, our predictions will be right on Inside Coverage. As I believe Steve Carell said, I love Lamp. We love lists here. So we gave you all our lists earlier, our midseason awards on Inside Coverage. Hi, Andrew, Jori, and Frank here with you. We're here 4 days a week, by the way. Join us if you're not doing it enough. You should come back. We have fun here every day, as I hope we've shown you. So let's look to the future here, Jori and Frank. Let's do a can't miss game of the second half of the season. One that you should circle on a calendar, maybe even go out and buy an airline ticket to and pray that your flight can be on time whenever this game is on the calendar. Can't miss game, Jori, of the second half is what?
Absolutely. My can't miss game of the second half of the season is Week 12, the Indianapolis Colts at the Kansas City Chiefs on November 23rd. I think when you look at this, the Colts are the best team by record in the AFC, and I want to know, are the Colts for real? How much of this was their schedule? How much of this is, can they do it in the biggest moment? We've talked with Frank's Power Rankings about the question of, if they were to play on a neutral stage, obviously this is not neutral, who would win and who is the better team, and who can actually overcome the emotion surrounding the game. And I think if the Colts can go into Arrowhead and win, then we should really start taking them even more seriously than we are now. But I don't know if they can. And then you could also say, of course, that the Ravens and the Bills sometimes have a little more success with them in the regular season than the playoffs. But all of this is to say, I want to know where the Colts are in the AFC pecking order, and they have to go through the Chiefs to do that.
Yeah, I mean, how crazy would it be? And we talked about this yesterday, that the AFC Championship game is at Lucas Oil. Wild. I mean, it's been there before, but that would be fun. Frank, circle a game on the calendar for me, will you?
Yeah, I mean, Jori just talked about the Colts having to prove themselves against the Chiefs. I mentioned the Bills and the Ravens. And one of the teams we don't talk about a lot is the Denver Broncos, who happen to lead the AFC West right now. They're not number one in my power rankings. They're not the team we're talking about, but the Broncos are in first place. I think they're going to be really, really good in the second half, to the point that, look, I don't like that the NFL's taken over by Christmas with multiple games, but at least they gave us a good one for that primetime one. It is Denver at Kansas City, Week 17 on Christmas night, and I think that game determines the AFC West championship. I believe, look, the Broncos went into Kansas City last year and should have beat them in Arrowhead. They got a field goal blocked at the end of the game, one of the ridiculous Chiefs wins last year. The Chiefs didn't even try Week 18. Fine, we didn't see a rematch. I think both games this year between these teams are going to be excellent, and I think the Broncos can stand toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. I think they can win this division. I really do, but you got to beat the Chiefs to do that, at least once. And I could just foresee us going into Week 17, Christmas night, and everything's on the line in the AFC West in this game. I'm really looking forward to this one. I trust me, I will stand on the table for this, plant the flag. The Broncos at some point are going to get their due. We are going to be having the show in a month or two, and you guys are going to say, yeah, you're right. I remember when you were talking about the Broncos being a Super Bowl contender. They're 6-2, and the least talked about 6-2 team I've ever seen, because the offense hasn't been great, but Sean Payton's going to figure that out. The defense is going to be great. And this game against the Chiefs on Christmas is going to be absolute must-watch of the NFL season.
Frank, just backing up here, because you sound like my brother a little bit. For the record, do you also like, or dislike rather, the NBA taking over your Christmas day?
I don't as much. That was the end of NBA's day almost, right? I don't cover the NBA, so I don't need to watch.
It's the first day of the NBA season.
It should be.
Kidding.
But that was the NBA's day, and the NFL just came in and said, screw you, NBA. We're just taking over Christmas now. And I'm having to explain to family members why I have to work all day on Christmas.
Yeah. I remember years ago, a family member asking me something like, you got to work on Christmas? I'm like, hey, question for you. Yeah. So like the remote, when you turn the TV on Christmas, does it work? Right? Like, yeah. I'm like, there are people inside the box talking to you. Right? Yeah. Like, we got to work on Christmas. Funny how that works. The game that I'm circling is actually 11 days before Christmas. My must-see TV game of the second half of the season is the rematch between the Patriots and the Bills. Remember, the Patriots have already beaten them once. That was in prime time. That was Week 5. That was in Orchard Park. Round 2 is, at least for now, and I've looked at the schedule, I don't think it's going to move. Well, this could be a flex, at least for now, is a 1 o'clock Eastern game on CBS. And I don't think, if I remember the finer points of the flexing rules, that this one can be flexed, because you're taking 2 divisional games out of the 1 and 4 o'clock windows. I don't think you can do that. because the first one was in primetime. Either way, the Patriots, we talked earlier about their schedule. They do have a tough stretch, week 15 and 16. They play Buffalo at home, and then they go to Baltimore. If you consider that tough, who knows what the Ravens are at that point. But that is coming out of a bye. So the Patriots, it is set up for them. And the rematch here, where if they can do it, who knows what the Bills are like then. I think they're going to be good, although the Ed Oliver news is another gut punch there as they get more and more injuries on the defensive side of the football. If they can do that and take over the AFC East from Buffalo, that to me is a big one. Circle that one. Week number 15. All right. This one's also fun. This was my idea. Not that I deserve credit for it, but I just wanted to mix it up a little bit. Jori, I want you to give me...
accountability if we say anything out of line. It's all on you, Andrew.
Oh, no. What would you say out of line?
Jori's never said anything out of line.
Say
Never.
something out of line.
Never.
That'll be fun. Okay. Give me a shocking second half headline. This is all make-believe. This is all speculative. A headline that maybe some don't see coming.
My shocking second half headline would be that the Ravens and John Harbaugh are heading towards a split. I don't think that John Harbaugh will not be a head coach in the NFL in 2026 if he wants to be, but I think there's sometimes it comes around where a head coach and a franchise are each ready for a fresh start, and you have to understand that John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, they've been working together for a while, and sometimes a coach and a quarterback don't always see eye to eye. And so if that's the case and you're the franchise, I think keeping Lamar, obviously, and I think John Harbaugh would have other options elsewhere should he want them. So it'll be interesting. I'm not only saying this because of their record. I do recognize that Lamar was injured for that and that their defense has been injured, but I do think that there are rumblings wondering just where everybody is in terms of desire to continue to working together in the long term. And whether it's Miami or elsewhere, I think there will be openings that could be appealing, and everyone could just decide, hey, let's mix it up.
Interesting. I also find it interesting that today, Tuesday, Lamar Jackson, who said he's definitely playing Thursday, don't look at me funny, said it was his idea to take all the fun stuff out of the locker room. Ping pong tables and all that stuff.
I'm telling you, I do not
and he said,
think Harbaugh and Lamar see eye to eye on everything.
And he said that if like they don't fix things, maybe he asks they take the TVs out too. Interesting. Frank, give me a surprising headline.
You know, this headline has been out there before, but I think this time it's going to be real. Mike Tomlin's been a great coach for many, many, many years, and the Steelers don't like to change coaches. But if the Steelers' second half rolls out the way I think it will, they're going to blow a 4-1 start to the season, lose the division to the Ravens, and then I think Steelers ownership is going to look around and say, our quarterback's not coming back next year. Our defense looks really old. It's the most expensive defense in the NFL, and it's not very good at all. We don't really have a lot of talent. This is a rebuild. Maybe we need somebody else to start this rebuild because we haven't won a playoff game since 2016, I believe it is. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he's a Hall of Fame coach. I think he'd get hired immediately by somebody else. But I think that if the Steelers bottom out, like I think they might in the second half, I think it might be it for Mike Tomlin, which would be shocking because the Steelers never change coaches, right? But I think if you envision the scenario playing out where you go from 4-1 to maybe a losing record finally for Mike Tomlin at the end of the year, the Ravens pass you for the division, I think maybe that might be the impetus for this long-awaited change. We speculate about it every year, and then the Steelers like, no, we got Mike Tomlin. Why would we change it? Well, maybe this would be the year. If you go from 4-1 and not even making the playoffs and you realize your roster needs to be completely turned over, maybe it's just time for a change.
It never I'm with you. One of these days it has to happen. But, I mean, there have been the last couple of years, you just read the columns in Pittsburgh in December where this is it. He's done. Get him out. This is it. Nope. Not going to happen. Never does.
But they keep saying it, making the playoffs.
One of these days you're going to be right.
Pittsburgh swap coaches.
That would be the greatest trade ever. Just Harbaugh for Tomlin, straight up. Who says no?
They're both great coaches. Just give them each a fresh start. They'll know the division.
That'd be awesome.
Wouldn't that be wild if then, like Mike Tomlin in Ravens gear, like tripped Calvin Austin running a kickback.
Man,
Like, wouldn't that
you're
be
holding on
wild?
to that. Wow, that was what, 20 years ago?
I mean, something like that. Here's mine, and this is a little outside the box. Look what the Cardinals have done recently, which is like lose everything after a couple of wins, and then they're on a losing streak right now. I think it's a 5-game skid. Might be 6. Honestly, I don't remember. But my shocking headline is this the end for Kyler Murray in Arizona? And you could also say, is it the end for Jonathan Gannon in Arizona, who I think is a really good coach? They've had a lot of close calls, but right now the record is not good. Kyler has, after this year, 1 more year of guaranteed money on his contract. So maybe they can't move on this offseason, but maybe they can. Maybe if you bring in a new coach and you hit reset, that includes moving on from the quarterback as well. I want to be clear. Not all that ails the Cardinals goes on Kyler Murray's shoulders. Truly is not the case. But you come to a point where, Jori, you kind of say the same thing about coaching in Baltimore, and Frank, you say the same thing about coaching in Pittsburgh. I'll say this about quarterbacking in Arizona. You know what you have, and maybe this just isn't it, and it's time to move on. I do think he'd be an attractive trade piece. I do think in this era of give a quarterback a second chance, let's see what he does somewhere else with a different coach and a different perspective. I think Kyler Murray would be a guy that other teams would want. Now, the contract is certainly an issue. You could work those things out. But if it continues to skid in Arizona, that is definitely one to keep your eye on. Is this the end of things for Kyler in Arizona? It is the start of things, however, for one last item I want to get to. For those who haven't read what Jori wrote Sunday, not about the Steelers and the Packers, but about what Micah Parsons said about Trevon Diggs, I think you should check it out. Obviously, it's up on Yahoo, and Jori has tweeted the story as well. It's getting some national run. You spoke to Micah. This wasn't on the podium. You spoke to Micah about whatever is going on in Dallas with Diggs, where he's missed games because of something that happened at home, concussion, obviously coming back from a major injury, and Jori has said some things on the podium. Jori, unpack this whole thing.
Yeah, I was at the Packers-Steelers game, and I went to the Steelers locker room first after the game, and then the Packers locker room. And among the people I talked to was Micah Parsons. And first, Micah and I talked about the Packers. And then I said, I know you're really good friends with Trevon Diggs. They were best of friends. I mean, even through Micah's holdout, that was the guy he was with the whole time in Dallas. There are a lot of questions Cowboys fans have about Trevon Diggs' health. What can you tell fans that have questions? And I thought Micah would say something like, my dog's going to be good. He'll be better. Like, he just has got to get through this knee injury or something. And instead, Micah, who is not afraid to speak his mind, goes, honestly, I feel like they effed my dog over. Essentially, he's coming off this knee injury. Micah said he believes the Cowboys rushed Trevon back too soon at the beginning of the season. They didn't do right by him. That's not how you treat players. And he hopes that Trevon can get to a place where he can be successful again, because he feels like at the Cowboys, they let him down. And it was definitely shocking to me that he said it. And after he said it, I go, Micah, you're good with me reporting this, right? I assume so if you said this, but I just want to make sure. Micah said he was. And I think I found it very interesting because Trevon Diggs had one knee injury that he was recovering from during training camp, hurts the other knee week 2, has a concussion, as mentioned a couple weeks ago at home, or that's what the team says, but Trevon hasn't talked, and the team will not say how he sustained the concussion. They have not chosen to share that. Then right after we think he's coming back, and they talked as if he's coming back, they're like, actually, we're putting him on IR between the knee, the concussion, and he needs to get into playing shape. And there's just a lot that's quite frankly, sketchy here in terms of not explaining. I don't remember a time when someone wouldn't explain how someone got a concussion at home. I'm not saying they always tell us the truth, but usually they at least make something up, and the Cowboys are not doing that. There's clearly tension between the club and the player. And so in my mind, when you have head coach, GM, and executive vice president speaking about this every few days repeatedly and only getting their narrative out, I wanted to know, well, what's the player narrative? And if I can't talk to Trevon while he's in concussion protocol, well, how about his best friend who also understands the organizational dynamics? So that's why I felt that Micah was relevant in this narrative. It wasn't so much that Micah's a doctor. It was that I think Micah's emotions, we can feel credibly represent Trevon's emotions very closely.
Interesting here. And thanks for picking me up. I said Travion. I had Travion Henderson on the brain here. It's Trevon Diggs, obviously. And also, I messed up earlier. I said Dom Delisandro. I don't know who that is. It's Dom DeSandro, obviously, with the Eagles. What do you think the end game is? Because Jerry was asked real quick here, Jori, if he thinks Diggs or Jerry or Steven, Eddie Jones will do this morning. I can't remember if he thinks that Diggs has played his final game as a Cowboy. They said no.
I don't think Trevon will get moved before the trade deadline. I do think that he's not going to make it to the end of his contract, which goes through 2028. He doesn't have guaranteed money after this year. And in theory, if the Cowboys really wanted to pursue a non-football injury, they could go after more of those guarantees. I'm not saying they will, but they could. I think most likely situation is he gets cut or traded in the spring. But I think there's a non-zero chance he would get moved before the trade deadline, because when I talk to people around the league, and we'll discuss this more on the next show, cornerback is a huge area of need. And if you're a team making it to the playoffs, Trevon after IR will be able to get you there. I think the Green Bay Packers is interesting. His Alabama coach is there, his best friend's there, and they're a playoff team. But we will discuss.
Interesting. Also, keep an eye on, if you're looking at a corner, Reek Woolen up in Seattle, who has fallen out of favor with this Mike Macdonald staff. We already had a big corner move a few weeks ago with Greg Newsome for Tyson Campbell, a 1-for-1, a first-round pick for a second-round pick, at least their initial draft, their original draft status. Teams need corners, and you have the Roger McCreary move this week as well, with the Rams plucking him off the Titans roster. This was fun, guys. We should do lists and awards more frequently. Just saying.
That's fine.
Okay.
I
The
like
smiles
that.
mean I think
Let's
Good
do it
summary
every
of
week.
where we're at.
MVP every week.
let's do it. Jori, I'm trying to make your headphones fall out by making you smile.
They are.
So
They're
there.
getting loose.
There's that. For
I think
Jori
I said this
Epstein,
offline. Every time I smile.
it was offline. Right. Your the earbuds fall out. And every time I do a video walking on the beach, some clown sends me a message about like AirPods falling out. You're not funny. Go back to 5th grade. For Frank and for Jori, my name is Andrew. Thank you for watching Inside Cover. See you next time on Yahoo.